Hey, Coby. Hello. Hello. Coby was here a second ago.
Awesome.
He's recording us.
Right now?
I don't know.
Yeah, it's recording.
That.
There. Oh, just Coby. Thank you. There he is. We're muted.
Hey, guys.
You're muted right now.
Coby, you're on mute. They seem froze up too.
Mm-hmm.
Is that the charger on the forklift that's making some noise?
Maybe. We can ask him if he hears any noise in the background.
Can you guys hear me?
Yep.
Barely, yeah. Yeah, we can hear you. We can't see you, however.
All right, hello.
Yep. Hey, there he is.
You guys keep cutting out a little bit.
Really? Huh.
You seem like you're cutting out, so I wonder if there's like a bad internet connection. Let me check something.
It's not us, it's you, Coby.
Katie, it says your internet connection is unstable. Yeah. So, hello?
Hey, Katie.
Hey,
Is that any better?
No, I mean, you're super choppy. You're pretty much frozen.
Where's
Over here. Hi, Liz. How are you?
good? How are you?
Can you hear me okay, or am I choppy?
No, we can hear you. Just seeing you is a bit, it's just very like chunky the way it's a little better now.
yeah, it seems like it's stabilized a little bit.
Yeah, it's better too. Yeah, it seems better already.
Okay, cool. Sweet. Well, yeah, no, I've done a bunch of Zoom meetings, but I've never hosted one. So this is all new. So usually just the monkey clicking the link, you know?
Yeah. Well, it says you're recording right now, so you may want to like stop and then restart it potentially.
Well, welcome everybody to 501 Wednesday, featuring the beautiful wines and the awesome people from Center of Effort. My name is Coby Parker Garcia with El Lugar, and I'll be hosting. I'm going to try and fill the shoes of Paula Dooley, and we're here representing the Slow Coast Wine Collective, and we are excited to have both Nathan Carlson and Kevin Bargetto from Center of Effort. So welcome, guys. It looks like you guys are in the main cellar. Got some nice barrels and some eggs behind you, and welcome.
Great. Hey, Coby, thanks for coming into the cellar with us. And we were going to talk a little bit about concrete fermentation vessels, something that we employ in making our Chardonnay and our Chenin Blancs here. And so we actually poured one of our, this is one of our wines that's made entirely in concrete vessels. So 16 vintage Giallo Solare. It's Chardonnay that's harvested, pressed real gently, and then just racked into concrete to ferment under natural yeast. It spends about a year there, and then we assemble it and bottle about 6 or 8 months later. So it's the first part of its life is concrete, and then it goes to stainless barrels up until bottling.
Nice. And so sorry, go ahead, Nathan.
So
With that wine.
Go ahead, Coby.
No, sorry. Yeah. So with that wine, so that you're saying the Giallo, it's 100% concrete, right? And with you guys also do other wines that are more kind of, I'd say, traditional Chardonnay method, barrel fermentation, barrel aged. Do you guys see, what are the big differences that you guys see between those two, just as far as overall flavor profile and fermentation techniques that you see between those two vessels?
Yeah, I mean, I think the big difference between the Giallo and our standard flagship Center of Effort Chardonnay is that the Giallo is, like Nathan said, 100% concrete fermented. And with that, you get a lot of texture and mouthfeel that you would also get in the Co-Chard, but with zero oak flavors, because we're using essentially a neutral vessel. And these concrete eggs act very similar to an oak barrel. They have oxygen that helps develop the wine and stabilize color. And also during the fermentation, a really unique thing about them is they have the round bottom shape to them, if you've ever seen them. And what that lends itself to is a natural convection mixing. So that entire time during the fermentation, those lees are being constantly stirred up. And that's really how you build texture and mouthfeel, which is really important for our Chardonnays. And since our Chardonnay here is so naturally high acid, that's a really great balance, is richness and texture and mouthfeel to that high acid. So that's why we've always really liked these concrete eggs, and they work really well for us. And I always like to say they're just another arrow to have in the quiver when it comes to blending.
And do you find that I mean, besides texture, the wine freshness similar to like stainless steel, but again, going back to you keep talking about the wines having more kind of more oomph to it out of the concrete, correct?
Yeah, and yeah, it is a lot of freshness as well. And it's all those wines are very fruit driven. There's no oak masking any of those flavors. So it's really just the pure fruit and the pure estate that we have in those concrete fermented and stored wines.
Yeah, our Chardonnay, if we ferment only in stainless steel, there's just no oxygen getting to the wine at all, and the wines get kind of shut down and they just don't develop. And so we find that the concrete is a really great mix of the attribute of a barrel where there's oxygen participating in shaping the wine, and there's good contact with lees through the wine's life, but it doesn't cover up fruit. So that's really the key thing. And like this Giallo Solare is just fresh, like white peach, and it lays out the fruit in a really clear manner. And with our own Chardonnay being so naturally high in acid, it's almost a challenge for us in a lot of ways, and we're always trying to drive more body and richness into the wine to help balance it. So it's been a great technique for us. It was something we started, I think in 2010, we bought the first concrete egg for Center of Effort. And it was, we had seen them in operation here. We had a client, Giornata Wines, Brian Teresi, and so he had a couple eggs, and he was fermenting some Italian varieties. And I didn't really think that much of it, but we were trying to build more diversity in our cooperage programs. We had some acacia barrels that we were working with, and it just seemed like another thing to try. And we had an opportunity where one of these fermenters was ordered, and they're built in France. They're pretty spendy, but we got a deal on it. It was already transported to the States, and the winery had gone out of business and wasn't able to accept it. So we got it basically without the shipping of this 1.5 ton egg from France. So that was key. We put it in the program, and we were just really surprised at what it contributed. Like, it really was a little missing puzzle piece. And our Center of Effort Chardonnay has basically been like 10 to 15% concrete fermented since that time. And what we made a really big investment into the eggs. What was it, 2 years ago? We brought the rest of these. Yeah, so now we have 13 concrete eggs that are 7 hectoliters, or about 3 barrels worth of wine. And then you may see, I think just over my shoulder here, there's some really large ones. These guys are 17 hectoliters, about 450 gallons. And the ultimate plan for them is actually a Rhone wine program. So we have Grenache, Syrah, Mourvedre planted next door. And we're really excited to get some red wines developing in these ultimately. So they're going to spend a couple cycles of Chardonnay, and then we'll move into red aging, not fermentation.
Now with the concrete vessels, is that pretty common to do whites first to kind of break them in before you fill them with reds, or before you use them for red fermentation if you decide to go that route?
Yeah, I mean, our program has come to be spraying the inside with a concentrated tartaric acid solution, because inside they're just bare concrete, and it's made with specific sand from the Loire River Valley, but it does react with the tartaric acid. And so you if you were just to put raw juice in there, you would lose a portion of your natural acid to the calcium salts. And so we need to kind of react them. And even so, I think that the first use, I like to run a hard pressed Chardonnay through there and let it just kind of react and work with that. But after a few uses, these things are completely neutral. And in fact, we don't even clean these in between uses. So what we've come to, anytime you have concrete in a winery, mold wants to grow on it because it's porous, it can hold some moisture, it's cool. And so we decided never leave these things empty. And so the program is, fruit will come in, will ferment in the concrete vessel. After 1 year, when we have the new fruit coming from the next vintage, we'll drain down the wine from inside the egg into some stainless steel barrels to hold it for blending. And immediately we'll refill with the new Chardonnay juice. And we've allowed the vessels to ferment from year to year with native yeast. So there's not any cleaning out. We're actually employing those yeast, letting them wake up, and they become kind of a sourdough culture of our winery. And so from 1 year to the next, we'll have additional kind of lees build up, tartrates will fill up on there, and it's been a good tool for us, really.
I think one thing that's interesting too that we found last year is we
And do you see pretty consistent?
Oh, go ahead, Coby.
No, go ahead, Kevin.
So I was just saying one interesting thing that we found looking at just the fermentation, comparing a egg versus a barrel. We really tracked the fermentation kinetics last year for the first time closely, whereas before it's usually just put the juice in those eggs, check on it 3 weeks down the road and see where it's at. But what we saw is the exact same wine in a barrel versus that same wine in a concrete egg is the barrel is able to heat up much quicker and ferment much quicker. So that lot finished in about 5 days, whereas that lot in the egg took about 3 weeks and it actually didn't go all the way dry. And I think that's due to those really thick concrete walls that the egg has, so it can keep that temperature much more in check, whereas a barrel, it can just really heat up and just rip right through fermentation. So I think those eggs naturally kind of preserve those really volatile esters that get blown off in hotter fermentations that aren't as controlled.
That's a really good point, and that's probably going back to, another piece to have in your puzzle to put a wine together was where you have a variety of either temperature fermentations or vessels that you're fermenting in. So that's really, I never really thought that's really interesting.
Yeah, really last year was the first time that we actually took a close hard look as we were running an experiment where we had to be tracking kind of all these data points. And it was pretty fascinating to see the barrel finish in 4 days, whereas the egg is still at like 16 bricks and just slowly ticking along. So those differences in fermentation kinetics are definitely going to lend itself to differences in the subsequent wine.
And when you're talking peak temperature, what's the difference between barrel versus the egg?
So the barrel was reaching kind of the low 70s, so 71, 72, and the egg never breached 64, 65. So significant difference in a white fermentation for sure. And that's also part of the reason why I think every once in a while we get fermentation that's a bit more sluggish in those eggs, just because it can never quite get up to temperature that it really wants to keep that fermentation rolling and keep those yeast happy and populated.
No, that's cool. And so that's your Chardonnay program. So and recently you guys planted some Chenin Blanc in the valley, correct?
Yeah. So Chenin Blanc was something that we had a very different site, and we knew it wasn't going to work for red wine. We knew we had as much Chardonnay as we really needed, and so we wanted to branch out. And we thought about a lot of things like Vermentino and Grenache Blanc, and in the end, we just thought that Chenin would be. It's something interesting. It's quite different from Chardonnay in the flavor profile and aromas, and it was suited to the soil, which is a lot more vigor, a lot more organics in that soil. And when it came time to ferment the Chenin Blanc, we actually, it was the year that 2018, we ended up with all these eggs, and we had a couple extra ones, and so we fermented, I think, in 2 eggs and a few stainless steel barrels that year. The idea to try and just not throw any oak at that wine at all and just keep it very pure. And I think that we've bottled, so the 18 vintage we bottled, we're almost sold out of that. That wine turned out really beautiful after giving us some fits along the way. It just was one of those wines that wouldn't complete fermentation all the way. And so it took maybe into the next summer, where we would have rather have bottled that wine within about 6 or 7 months. We ended up going almost a full year before bottling. And so the wine's delicious. It just took a little while to get there. And with this 19 vintage, we followed a really similar path. So they're bottling right now at about half concrete fermented, half stainless steel fermented. They show really lovely kind of right out front estery fruit, and where Chardonnay requires, it works with a lot of food. Chardonnay is pretty food friendly overall, but when you get into like Thai food or other Asian cuisine especially, it seems like Chenin is just it's more of a match for those flavors. And so it's been really, really helpful wine to have around.
And the 19 behaved much nicer.
Yeah, the 19 really, the 18's delicious, but the 19, just to me, it's much more Chenin, like much more traditional Chenin too.
No, that's good. Yeah, Chenin Blanc, it seems to have picked up a little bit of popularity in the last 5 to 7 years, especially in California. People are, there was a big Riesling trend for a while. Now it seems to be like Chenin seems to kind of be picking up a lot of momentum on that. So with the Chenin Blanc that you guys planted, is that the first Chenin Blanc that's ever been planted in the Edna Valley, or has any Chenin been grown in the valley before?
Well, I was telling John Niven, yeah, we planted Chenin Blanc, so there's Chenin Blanc in the valley. And he said, well, I've got like 40 acres of Chenin Blanc in the valley. It's just that it has Chardonnay grafted on top of it right now. And so Chenin was a big part of like farming here in the 70s. There was Chenin Blanc, quite a bit of it. But as Chardonnay just became more popular, it was grafted over or replanted. It's really suited here though. We don't have anywhere near the kind of mildew and disease pressure problems that we have with Chardonnay. And another thing I love about it is that traditionally Chenin's made into dessert wines, off dry wines, sparkling wines. Like there's a whole range of styles that we could take the wine in. And so for a small winery, it'll probably be mostly just a tasting room kind of a wine club wine. Like it gives us options to do some really fun things.
I think
I'm sure
the
it's a
Chenin
great
Blanc
wine.
is a really great match for the soils that we have out on that valley floor about a mile away from our state property. Whereas here, we have really sandy, devigorating soils. Over in the valley, we have those clay loam soils that are naturally very vigorous, which is a great match for Chenin Blanc's high vigor. So I think that was part of the decision why Chenin Blanc was planted.
Okay. No, I really like the 18. The 18 was really nice, and I'm looking forward to tasting the 19. But, and you said that was half fermented in concrete and half stainless?
Yep, it worked out about 50-50. I think we did the tech sheets and it was like within a gallon or something.
Yeah, just round up or round down, right?
Yeah, one other thing we were just tasting today, Kevin talked me into letting him use an egg for red wine for the first time in 2019. And so we have a Pinot Noir in egg. And so we were just talking about we have the same wine in barrel and in egg, and just kind of going through what we thought of the differences there.
Yeah, it took a lot of convincing. And then one day Nathan just showed up and said, when are you putting the Pinot in the egg? I'm like, right now. And ran and sanitized everything and got in the egg as quickly as possible. But yeah, Coby, you might remember this fermentation. It was that bug carbonic, kind of quasi carbonic maceration that I did. It was a style that I'd seen in New Zealand that I really liked, the wines at the end. So I kind of wanted to give it a shot here. And I felt like that was a wine that doesn't have a lot of extraction and structure. So I thought concrete might be kind of the right avenue for that. And I never put a red wine in concrete. So I think more than anything, it was just a learning opportunity. But tasting those wines today, as we were going through kind of a whole triage of Pinot Noirs from 19, we found that the egg, structural wise and just mouthfeel and richness, is a little bit leaner as opposed to the barrel. And then aroma wise, this was 100% whole cluster fermentation. The egg has a little bit less stemmy character to it, whereas the barrel has a little bit more. So whether that was concrete and barrel influence, it's hard to say. But I think really just above all was just getting red wine and that egg, and then we'll think of something fun to put in this year. And then, like Nathan was saying, we're also getting ready for the Rhone program that will be seen from concrete as well. So just starting to kind of get a hang of what concrete does to red wines is something that's pretty novel to us.
In white wines, I would say that concrete seems to oxidize faster than a barrel. Like we kind of get development of about what we would see in a barrel in 18 months, we can get in about 11 or 12 months in concrete. And so for red wine, I wanted to watch that pretty closely and just see if the wines were starting to drop off too fast. But I think that wine tastes really good to me. And it's almost like with all that carbonic, it's almost like a crude Beaujolais or something. Like it just really has that kind of, that it's down that path a ways for sure.
Well, I mean, you see up in Paso a lot of wineries using Grenache with concrete just to add that that freshness to their monster wines that they're making up there. So I think you guys are onto something as far as the concrete fermentation, concrete vessels that you're using, and especially the shape of the eggs. I mean, I love that Giallo. I think it's an amazing Chardonnay, and I'm really curious. Next time I come in, I want to taste that Pinot out of the egg.
Yeah, I figured we had 15 eggs. The least we could do is turn one red.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. So, can we talk a little bit about the estate and, or, center of effort, how long it's been around, and kind of what you guys have done to pretty much turn the winery into a top-notch winery and an amazing vineyard with great fruit. Do you want to kind of elaborate on that and how you came to what?
Sure. I just finished 10 years here at Center of Effort. So I started in 2010, and thinking back on all the changes that we've made over time, a lot of them are kind of behind the scenes, and you don't see, like putting new wells in and planting new vineyards and things like this. But so Center of Effort is the property was built as the Lawrence family winery back in 1978. So it's over 40 years old at this point. And when Bill Swanson and Cheryl Swanson purchased the property in 2008, they did so because they wanted to have a pretty high-end Chardonnay and Pinot Noir project in the Edna Valley. They grew up locally. They loved the wines from here. And I think they spoke with Brian Talley, who farms the Stone Corral Vineyard right across the street. And it's really similar soil type. And, Coby, the Edna Valley well. It's the climate's very, very consistent throughout the Edna Valley. It's a really small little appellation, but the soils are really broken. We've had so much geologic activity here that you can walk 100 yards and get completely different soil types. And so what's exciting coming onto this property, it has, sometimes in a small vineyard, you have kind of all one thing. Here we really have a lot of diversity in the soil. The biggest part of it is kind of an old sand dune that was laid down by the oceans, and it's very just powdery beach sand, kind of drifted dune. It doesn't have a lot of vigor to give to the vines, but it leaves them pretty exposed. And so for red wines, fruit gets a lot of sunlight exposure through its life. It for Pinot Noir, which can be a little fickle on color, we don't get a lot of yield. We don't have a lot of tons per acre, but the fruit is really dense and dark and perfumed, and it ripens on the earlier side of the fruit here in this valley. So, I came on board 10 years ago to be the general manager and winemaker. Mike Seiner was their opening winemaker, and so we worked together on the wines for a number of vintages here as well. And over time, just built a team, kind of focused in on what we need to do for the wines, and learning intimately, like every little block we know really well. And John, who's on the call here today, he kind of started with interning with us about 4 years ago, I think, and helped us with vineyard sampling coming up toward harvest. And I think he probably knows the blocks as well as anyone now. That there really are sections of the vineyard that we flag out that are tiny, and that's one pick because that's what's happening in that little bit of soil. We just completed 4th of July weekend. We planted 25,000 new grapevines. And so we took a couple of our really, really top quality sites that had just gone into decline. And we kind of reimagined what we wanted to do there, tighter row spacing. And we brought in instead of going for new clones, we actually got some old heritage stuff, some old selection of Pomard, some cleaned up Ray clone from Mount Eden, and even we put a little more clone 23, but it's a new shoot tip culture. So it's some cleaner wood, but we're excited to bring back some more things, more flavors that we don't have right now. I don't know, what are you excited about here, Kevin, lately?
Yeah, I think the new Rhone program is kind of the big one right now. That just came online last year, so that's the property just next door to us. It's the Grenache Chiron Mourvèdre. And we harvested it last year for the first time. We weren't quite sure whether we were going to get any yield and ripeness out of it, but sure enough, it powered through and gave us a surprisingly good yield and great ripeness and great flavors. And tasting through those wines these last 9 months has been really exciting, and we've been learning a lot about it. So that's going to be a really fun program to kind of get out there to the public. Yeah.
One other really important thing I think is we've always been really committed to sustainable farming here. So I think 2011 was our first certification year for SIP's sustainability in practice. And I believe that we just eked across the finish line on certifying the winery facility itself, which was a lot of Kevin's doing, really. Like there's a lot of tracking water use and energy use and all these things. And so we're making a commitment to that. We're entirely solar powered on the property here as well. Along with that, we just completed renovation of a beautiful new hospitality center. And this was kind of our summer to start to really welcome people here with some parties and being a little bit more active with that. And then the world had different ideas. We're still here available by appointment, and people are having a great time coming in.
So you guys are open by appointment. Is that 7 days a week?
Yeah, I think it is, as long as an appointment is made. And we have the staff to do the tasting. We're happy to welcome people here when it's convenient for them.
And is that best to go through the website, or is there a phone number or contact person to reach out to?
Yeah, I would start with the website, which is coewine.com. So centerofeffortwine.com.
And then, so as far as when we're talking center of effort, what's the acreage that we're talking about for both the states, I should say?
Well, there's 3 properties in total. The original property is about 100 acres in total size. In 2015, we purchased the next door neighbor's property, which added another 40 acres. And then there's a small property sort of in the Twin Creeks, kind of old Edna neighborhood. And I don't know what total acreage is, but we have planted about 1.1 acres of Chenin Blanc. So in total, like 150-ish total acres, and maybe about half of that is either planted and producing or in development.
So you guys are pretty much 100% estate as far as the wines that you guys are making then?
Yep, everything that we bottle as Center of Effort or Effort is entirely estate grown. And we have another project called Fossil Point, which we partner with some other neighboring farmers that are committed to sustainability as well. And that's more of that's a great restaurant program kind of wine, but it's not entirely from the estate, and a little different in style and build. Gotcha.
No, that's awesome. That's a lot of information. So I feel lucky because I get to see you guys, basis out at your spot. But it is an interesting time right now with these Zoom chats and all the other stuff. But at least we get to look forward to harvest and kind of normality, hopefully, and we can all get through harvest and kind of focus on that with all the craziness of the world, I guess, right?
Yeah. It's nice to walk in the vineyards because you forget that anything's going on other than grape growing and farming, The vines have no idea anything else is up. And
how far through veraison are you guys? Or are you guys just starting?
Yeah, just finally driving the vineyard or the driveway out. You can start to see some vines going through it, but I think we're still probably picking early September. So we got some time. Get a few last trips in.
And is that kind of normal or kind of average for you guys picking around that time, or is it going to be a little earlier?
Yeah, the last 2 years have been the second week of September, but the 2 years before that was mid-August. I think that was abnormally early. So I think kind of that second week in September is pretty average for us looking back 10 years.
If you're going to do
and how long does it?
Yeah, true. Yeah.
Yeah, you might be picking in mid-August. So.
Yeah, we're gonna scratch that pet gnat.
Oh man, this has been fun, you guys. Is there anything else you want to say to anyone that's listening about the program, about maybe something new that's coming out, wine club,
Yeah, I mean, I think that we're trying really hard to put together a socially distant Pinot and pizza event in August for our wine club members, but we're still working our way through that. I think it might depend on how things go in our county. So I think it's probably maybe a 40% chance that we pull it off. And that's with our friend Chris Shackelford, who he's been really great to kind of help us think through hospitality here. He runs a fantastic restaurant and wine program over in Clovis, but he'll pop over to the coast every chance he gets. And he's really been a wonderful partner with us. You know, other than that, I think for us, it's really focusing on harvest. That's what's coming next. Getting our team together. We have, I think, 8 Cal Poly interns coming in to work with us, and yeah, we're excited. I think it's going to be a really good year, and we have some ideas of things we want to try. So we'll see you for a lot of that, and we can bounce ideas off Coby along the way.
Yeah, I've already started putting together my case of wine that I take out for harvest so that I can have drink a little bit during lunch. So got some cool bottles to share. So
great. Well, hey Coby, thanks for having us on, and everybody out there watching, Slow Coast, we're trying to kind of connect, and hopefully this is interesting. So you can send out, I think, emails or questions. I'm Nathan at centerofeffortwine.com. Kevin is Kevin at centerofeffortwine.com. So we'll love to hear from you.
I appreciate your guys' time. I mean, you guys are amazing people making great wines, and it's just all part of what we're doing here in one of the most beautiful and best areas of the world. So cheers to you guys, and thanks to everyone out there for spending a little bit of time with us. So
thanks, Coby.
All right, you guys, take it easy, and I'll see you guys around.
Yeah,
sounds good. Thanks, Coby.
All right, take care.